Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. And Foil Armor, flatten your foils fast. Max wins the die roll and starts us off. Max draws and plays a tapped Zagoth Triome. Will's turn has him just playing a mountain. Arja's got a tapped Temple of Silence, scrying 1 and passing after he's done. Metcha just plays a swamp. Max's turn has him playing an untapped Darkslick Shore and pays 2 for a Farseek to go and find a land. Will likes this so much he plays an Exotic Orchard and casts his own Farseek, passing as well. Arja's got a Shattered Landscape and pays 2 for a Lightning Greaves. Metcha has an island and passes. Max plays out a tapped Oran Reef and then pays 3 mana for Hadana's Climb. Will's turn has him drawing, but with no land to play, he's only able to cast Eskhi and passes after she resolves. Arja's got a Charming Prince in his main phase, scrying 2 and bottoming both. He then plays out Boros Garrison, which bounces the landscape back to hand. Arja then gears up the Prince with the Greaves, and going to combat, he hits Will for 2. Metcha's got an island, and then casts a Ghostly Pilferer, passing after it resolves. Max's turn has him playing a tapped Kalni Territory, and he then casts his commander, Kotis. This triggers Metcha's Pilferer, allowing Matt to draw a card. Max then moves to combat, and the Hadana's Climb puts a +1/+1 counter onto his commander, and he passes after that. Will has a forest which he presumably just drew, and he taps a green for Birds of Paradise. This gives his commander a +1/+1 counter, and Will then follows up with a Temur Battlecrier. This gives Eskhi another counter, and draws Will a card. Moving to combat, he swings at Arja with his commander, and passes after she connects. Arja's turn has him playing out a mountain, and he then casts his commander with Neriv. This triggers Metcha's Pilferer as well, and he moves to gear up Neriv with the Greaves. Before allowing it to happen though, Metcha asks Arja if he'll be swinging the commander at him, to which Arja says no for now, and also that Will is safe because of the Birds of Paradise. This in turn prompts Metcha to cast a Tainted Strike, and this will pump Neriv to be now a lethal infect creature, as it'll double its own damage. Arja, seeing his chance, decides to take out Max, and passes after doing so. Metcha plays a swamp for turn, and then just passes, having made Arja an accessory to murder. Will untaps and draws, playing out a Wooded Foothills. He cracks it, losing 1, and goes to find a Cinder Glade which comes in untapped because he has 2 basics. Spells now also cost him 2 colorless, and he then plays out a Xenagos for only 3 mana. With the God on the stack, Metcha flashes out Fairy Mastermind, so that he'll draw a card as Will does from Eskhi. Will then adds a counter to his commander, and draws a card, and her final ability triggers, which has Eskhi dealing 5 to each of Will's opponents. Going to combat, Xenagos triggers on Eskhi, and he swings her at Metcha. Metcha blocks the Pilferer, and Will then moves to his second main phase. He casts Uro. This has Will drawing a card, adding a counter onto Eskhi, and then deals 6 to each of his opponents thanks to Eshki's ability. Uro then enters, gaining Will some life, but he has no land to play, and has to sacrifice Uro as well. Will then plays an Arcane Signet for free, and he then plays a Skyshroud Claim, going to find 2 forests. One of them is a Stomping Ground, which has him taking 2. Will then pays a red and a green for Rhythm of the Wilds, and passes to Arja after that. Arja draws and regrets having taken out Max over Will. He then floats all of his mana, leaving 1 white floating, and uses some of it to cast Read the Bones, scrying 2, losing 2, and drawing 2. This also has Metcha get a free draw from the Mastermind. Arja then replays the Shattered Landscape that he'd bounced earlier. He then uses the floating mana and the landscape to help cast Swiftfoot Boots. He then resigns himself to his fate and passes. During the end step, Mathieu casts Cast Down and takes out the Battle Crier. Mathieu draws and casts a Scheming Symmetry, picking Arja as his partner in crime to go and tutor with. They both put the card they tutored for on top, and Mathieu then casts a Baleful Strix. He draws as the bird enters. Mathieu then swings a Fairy Mastermind at Will, and Will takes the hit, and Matt passes. Will untaps, and on his upkeep, Mathieu casts Slip Out the Back, giving Eskhi a +1/+1 counter, but more importantly, phases her out until Will's next turn. This has Will then drawing, and playing out a Carplusian Forest return. He's able to tap enough for a Maelstrom Wanderer, and he gets 2 Cascades. The first one hits Temur Ascendancy, and then a Polywog Prodigy. With the Prodigy coming in, he gives it a +1/+1 counter to the Riot trigger because he knows the Wanderer and Ascendancy both grant haste. The Maelstrom Wanderer then comes in, triggering the Prodigy's Evolve trigger, and gives it another +1/+1 counter. Will then has the Wanderer get a +1/+1 counter because of Riot. He also draws a card from the Ascendancy, seeing the Wanderer come in. Going to combat, Xenagos then gives the Wanderer its pump, and Will swings it at Arja, and Xenagos goes at Mathieu. Arja blocks the Charming Prince, while Mathieu takes the hit. Will then passes turn. Arja's turn has him playing Temple of Malice, scrying 1 and bottoming it. He then taps his Garrison and Landscape, and uses 2 of it to cast Direfleet Daredevil. As the Daredevil comes in, he exiles the Tainted Strike. Arja then moves the Greaves over onto the Daredevil, and uses the white floating to cast Swords to Plowshares, and targets the Birds of Paradise to try and exile it. Will is ready though with a response, using Heroic Intervention to grant it Hexproof, and the removal spell fizzles. Will also gets to draw a card from the Prodigy trigger, seeing Arja casting a Swords, and it has more power than the converted mana cost. Unfortunately, this disrupts Arja's plan to take out Will with an Infecting Neriv, much like Max, and with his line gone, Arja can only pass turn, and leaves the Tainted Strike in exile. Mathieu draws and plays an Inkmoth Nexus. He then pays 3 mana, casting a Cephalid Facetaker, and he moves to combat, having the Facetaker become a copy of the Baleful Strix, and then passes to Will. Will untaps, and on his upkeep, Arja casts Ephemerate and targets the Direfleet Daredevil. Will thinks about this for a second, but allows it to resolve and draws from the Polywog. With the Daredevil coming back in, Arja exiles Mathieu's Slip Out the Back. He then taps his last land to target Eskhi with it and try and phase her out. Will does decide to respond to this, using a reduced cost Bolt Bend, and redirects the phasing out the Baleful Strix on Mathieu's side. Will then moves to draw for turn. In his main phase, he casts Sylvala, Heart of the Wild. She comes in with a +1/+1 counter from Riot because everything else seemingly grants haste, and Eskhi also gets a +1/+1 counter, and Will also draws from the Temur Ascendancy. Will then goes to combat, giving Eskhi the Xenagos trigger, swinging her at Arja, while the Wanderer and Xenagos go at Mathieu. Mathieu blocks the Wanderer with the Mastermind, taking the 6 from Xenagos, and Arja just takes the full hit because he's pretty sure the game is over anyway. Will then activates Sylvala in his second main phase, making 16 mana, and casts Mina and Den. He draws from Eskhi casting it, gives her a counter, and draws as they enter from the Ascendancy. Will then casts an Outcaster Trailblazer, doing much the same, plus makes a mana as it enters. He follows that up by casting a Cactus Sure Shot, this time drawing 3 cards since the Trailblazer now also draws him 1 as well. We then see a Combat Celebrant, doing the same again, with Will drawing 3 more. He finally finds a big creature, and taps out for Oreni, the song ending. This has Eshki's final ability triggering, and it deals enough to take everyone out, winning Will the game. Game review time. So this was a bit of a short one, coming in just under 35 minutes, and it kind of showcases why Tainted Strike probably has such a bad reputation. I think the fact that they took out Max with poison so early on, despite the fact that they had no idea what his deck was doing, might not have been the best choice. As we saw, that allowed Will to basically go completely unanswered for the rest of the game, and despite the fact that they kept finding answers, Eskhi just kept doing things and drawing and blasting face. I would say probably the most memorable card in this game might have been the Bolt Bend, otherwise I think he was pretty much going to get taken out by Arja's Neriv. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet. I want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.